How do you know if something is horror? My name is Gina. I'm an author, editor, publishing professional. I help you make your writing better. So, horror is one of those genres that is trying to create a physiological response in the reader. There are only a couple of them that I can think of that are for sure trying to create physiological responses. Horror is one of them. It is trying to create an ever increasing sense of dread throughout the story. There are a ton of different flavors and subgenres of horror. You can have something that is psychological, you can have something that is like a body horror, you can have slasher flicks, right? There are horror stories that are very graphically violent, but there are plenty of horror stories that have little to no violence in them at all. And there are stories that are horrifically graphically violent that are not genre horror. Horror, again, is about this ever increasing sense of dread as you move through the story. At the end, when your hero wins, it is always with a sense of, but at what cost? There's always a heaviness to the end of a horror story. It is never a light, fluffy, cheering, triumphant. It is always like, oh, we got out of that by the skin of our teeth, and look at all we lost along the way. You can have very dark books in lots of genres that are not horror, and you can have horrifying and horrific elements in genres that are not horror. Grimdark fantasy in particular likes to go to some really dark and devastating places, and sometimes for no reason at all. They are just being graphically violent and exploitative for the purpose of being exploitative and violent. That's just fun for the people who are writing and reading it, but it's not genre horror. So you do need to make sure that you are following the structure of a horror, that you are following the vibes of what horror is, and make sure that you understand different subgenres so you know where you fit within those. But being dark and scary and violent is not necessarily horror.